Guys, this is just crazy. Shoigu looks like he's about to make absolutely disastrous decision, the worst decision in his entire military career. At the same time, Russians decided to self-terminate each other in Crimea. Wagner is spotted once again back in Ukraine, and there is some kind of an escalation in Serbia, but more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Who? Okay. Sounds like a dog, but okay. So today we have this crazy Z-Patriot in its pure form, just like the best possible. Okay, so there is this guy who just decided to do a tattoo of Prigozhin. Literally entire Prigozhin's face on his left or right shoulder, and the caption of this picture, it couldn't even get worse. Basically, it is saying that a brother or a friend of the guy decided to do this tattoo, which was basically the best times of his life, and this tattoo is his dream come true. I don't even know what's even worse here, the tattoo itself or the nose position of the crazy Z-Patriot. They're equally not perfect. But yeah, guys, just let me know in the comments, especially if you do have tattoos, how do you rate this one specifically. And by the way, we will talk more about Wagner later in this video. And if I will be this guy, personally I will do two things. Thing number one is that I will never get such tattoo in the first place. That's kind of obvious. And the thing number two, if I did end up getting this tattoo and every single time I go in the public space, I will just cover it with clothes. Now the another question is, which kind of clothes will I use? And what can be better than the special edition, limited edition, the Russian Dude Easter hoodie, which you can get right now completely for free with the purchase of any the Russian Dude pants. Just please make sure to use the code EASTER23 during checkout, and just like this, the hoodie will be completely for free. The link is, guys, down below. But okay, now let's really quick talk about some kind of an escalation in Serbia. We're gonna spend there no more than 1 minute, and then we're gonna talk about the frontline update, Shoigu and Wagner. I just realized that saying those two words in the same sentence bring me back to 2023. But so yeah, speaking about Serbia, its President Alexander Vučić made this very controversial post on his Instagram, saying pretty much that Serbia as a country is facing extreme difficulties, which can be endangering the lives and the existence itself of the country, and within the next 48 hours, which is less than 24 hours from the moment of posting this video, a lot of questions will be answered. There is an immense threat once again to Serbia. It will be extremely complicated for the people of Serbia to go through these times, but we shall be united and Serbia will be victorious. That's approximately the summary of whatever Alexander Vučić posted on his Instagram. Not too many things we can assume right now, everything is just our own predictions. So let's see, there is something going on within the government of Serbia, that's without a doubt. Now, as promised, let me give you the frontline update, and before we go to the Ukraine itself, let's make a quick stop in one of Russian cities, Belgrade, which, as you know, is pretty much at this point daily under attack. And so one of the most recent attacks was reportedly against one of the main buildings of the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs, as you can see from this video. At the same time, Russian freedom fighters, specifically Russian Volunteer Corps, they released this video, which is just a small compilation of their combat activities against the Z army in Kozinka, located in Belgrade region. And they show a small work of its snipers, I'm assuming. Then they show the destruction of small command post, which Russians used in one of the abandoned buildings. And this video itself, once again, is just show the progress that Russian freedom fighters are making on the territory of Russia, at this point pretty much uninterfered, because the Z army is not resisting that much. In response to that, Russians started to attack Kharkov, and unfortunately among the destroyed or severely damaged residential buildings, is one of the secondary schools. And this time Russians reportedly were using guided bombs which are called UMBP-T30SN with the warhead of FAB-250. These are basically a very cheap versions of cruise metallic cylinders which are extremely inaccurate, but they're so much cheaper than the metallic cylinders itself. And looks like that this is what Russians are switching to in attacks against residential areas in Ukraine. It is cheaper, it is less accurate, but the most important thing for the Russian army, that it is cheaper. And unfortunately they do retain the destructive capabilities. So for example, as you can see from this video recorded from Liman front line, we can see this above mentioned FAB-250 in action. So to say the least, they are pretty destructive. Ukrainians are preparing at the same time for a so-called maybe even last stand, because they are building extensive fortifications and defense structures, including fortified trenches which are fortified with the concrete, and the areas where they are doing it right now, additionally to the ones we were previously mentioning in the previous episodes, are in Kharkov, in Donetsk region, and also in Sumy. And specifically talking about Sumy, the president of Ukraine himself, Vladimir Zelensky, came to inspect those new fortifications. As we go to the actual Ukrainian front lines in the east, according to the soldiers fighting there, they were able to repel at least a total of number 13 different assaults by Russians against Bilohirivka, Terny and Yimpolivka. And then in Crimea, Ukrainians were also able to destroy yet another heavy flamethrower of Russians called Solntsepek, and at this very moment it is estimated, it has been reported that this is the 23rd machine of such kind that Russians lost in this war. And almost forgot, guys, one quick thing about Bilohirivka is that whenever Ukrainians were repelling Russian assaults, they were able to eliminate the infantry as well, along with their combat vehicles. And upon inspection, they were able to find that there were some Wagner soldiers. So obviously, not the entire Wagner is back in Ukraine. I honestly think that the existence of this private military company is not even close to be what it used to be during Prigozhin, but as you can see, Wagner soldiers are still fighting in Ukraine. And finally, our last stop in the east of Ukraine is going to be in Avdiivka plant, where, as you can see, Russians are still occupying this, and this is pretty much their fortress. And previously, the mortar firing position was targeting Ukrainian concentration of forces. Well, Ukrainians, they were able to find where this location of the mortar position of Russians is hiding inside Avdiivka plant, and they used a cluster munition to eliminate them, which they were able to do quite successfully. And ultimately, as promised, let's talk about update from the south, where Russians decided to self-destruct, literally, in Crimea, and Shoigu decided to make a literally suicidal decision. But before we proceed any further, guys, can you please help me to help my work be spread to more people on YouTube? This can be done by simply liking this video and subscribing to my channel, so the algorithm sees that this is an interesting video for people to see and starts pushing it to even more people. Everything, once again, can be done by simply liking this video, subscribing to my channel, guys. Thank you so much. You can also follow me on Instagram, the weekends are coming, so you can see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. And so yes, first of all, in Novoprokofivka, Zaporozhye region, Ukrainians using HIMARS were able to destroy two pretty fat targets. One of them was known as self-propelled artillery system, and another one was KAMAZ truck, which was pretty much most likely the truck supplying the munition to this above mentioned machine. Next we have yet another pretty extraordinary and interesting video, which is from Kherson region. Ukrainians are pretty much observing the locations and observing the movements of the Russian forces, and then they realize that a lot of them are going in the very same building, which at first looks like just a regular residential building. But I mean, whenever a dozen of infantrymen, then there's like an entire military vehicle approaches there, and most likely some officers, they dismount and they enter the building as well. Well, Ukrainians assume that most likely this is some kind of a command post of Russians, which they are using to maybe launch drones or control or guide the army, anything like this. So eventually, due to this incredible patience by Ukrainians and incredible observation skills, they were able to destroy this building with extreme precision, because it was located in the residential neighborhood, and not a single any other building was even a affected at all. It was just this building alone, and Ukrainians did wait until as many infantry as possible went inside this building before conducting their attack. Honestly, this is a pretty interesting video to see. You can even see some kind of like building up, like some kind of even drama with the happy ending. Honestly, this is a pretty interesting video to see. You can even see some kind of like building up characters, some kind of even drama, and there's even relatively nice editing skills of the video itself. Guys, if you want to see the uncensored version, it will be available on my Patreon, along with the early access to fully uncensored episodes of The Russian Dude. This is one of the best ways to support the channel, because Patreon does not take much of a cut as YouTube does. So if you want to support the channel and see uncensored footage and episodes, once again, it is on my Patreon, the link is down below. Thank you guys so much. Right, now our next stop brings us to Crimea, where, I don't know, looks like drunk Russian military drivers. They were driving Kamaz, transporting one of the tanks, and then this guy just literally out of nowhere, according to the local residents, this was like, there was not an accident, nothing like this, the road is not slippery, it's not winter after all. The guy just overturned his truck. So the driver and his passenger were eliminated in this accident, and at the same time the tank itself, it obviously fell from Kamaz, from this truck, and during fall the turret of a tank just literally detached from the tank. This is just a disaster. Like, you only had one job: deliver tank from point A to point B. Don't make fun, don't show off, don't do nothing, just drive from A. Well, Russian driver, military driver, failed to do this pretty reasonably simple task. And I'm not like complaining, I don't think Ukrainians complain either. To say the least, to sum up, Russians decided to self-destruct themselves in Crimea. What else can I say? But if you thought this was ridiculous enough, wait until you hear about the literally suicidal decision that the Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, decided to make. So he basically recently, according to this report by the British intelligence, he decided to create a so-called Dnipro River Flotilla. And the main purpose of this will be to regain the control of the Dnipro River itself, for Russians obviously, and then also try to recapture Kherson region to the right side, to the north of Dnipro River. Why do I think that this is a pretty extraordinarily bad decision by the Minister of Defense of Russia, Shoigu? Well, first of all, not a single decision he was making in the past was kinda genius, to say the least. Because after all, Shoigu himself never was in the army. Like, yes, you heard right. The Minister of Defense of Russia was never serving in the army. Just like this. And then now he is making decisions like this. But anyways. So then he decided to create this flotilla with the main purpose to re-establish the control of Dnipro. And if you remember, in November 2022, Ukrainians were able to recapture Kherson region, push Russians all the way to the south of the river, and since then Russians were not able to achieve any meaningful progress. It was Ukrainians themselves who established a bridgehead in Crimea, and they try to right now expand their success and continue the liberation of Kherson region. If you are in one way or another related to the military, to the army, if you guys in one way or another are related to the military or army decision-making strategies or anything like this, you probably can assume that one of the most complicated things is crossing water obstacles, because you're literally out in the wild, you're out in the open, there is no protection, there is nowhere to hide, you are going extremely slow, you cannot just drive on top of the river, obviously. I mean, I didn't know why I even said it, but you get the idea. And at this time, you're under constant fire by the enemy. Crossing water obstacles, to sum up, is extremely complicated. And so Russians were not able to hold Kherson region, they were pushed all the way to the south of Dnipro River, they're not able to do anything for more than a year at this point, and now suddenly they're like, okay, let's recapture everything back. I do not personally envy those Russian soldiers who will be in this so-called Dnipro River Flotilla established by Sergei Shoigu. I think this will be just a literally suicidal mission. Like, this is, I would not want poor people be in this place. They will not achieve anything. Simple as that. They will not be able to achieve anything. They will be just eliminated. Then this whole plan will be scratched. Sergei Shoigu will not bear any consequences, will not bear any responsibilities, and the war will just continue as it is. Russian propaganda will not talk about this at all. But once again, this is the decision worthy of a Minister of Defense of a country who is never even was serving in the military in the army of its own country. So no surprise here. But yeah, let's see what's gonna happen. Guys, please once again subscribe to my channel to help my work. Don't forget about limited edition Russian Dude hoodie, and also go ahead and check my Patreon for uncensored episodes, and see you tomorrow.